Hi, I'm Jessica Rogers with the Pacific Palisades Residents Association. I'm here today at Will Rogers Beach with a very special young woman, Jess Echeverry, Executive Director of Sofisa, organization that was funded in 1999. And we're going to talk about a few topics on homelessness tonight. So, Jess, I hear that you are somebody who has lived experience. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, so lived experience is how LASA explains to or describes someone who has experienced homelessness previously. And so that would be me. I experienced homelessness for roughly 4 years, living on the streets, motels, shelters, people's homes, the beach. What's ironic is that we're here sitting at the beach, and I actually spent my first night homeless on the beach in the sand.
Now, this was without your family, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the things that Sofisa has learned, obviously through our over 20 years of helping homeless families and the homeless, is the reasons behind somebody's encounter with homelessness. And the number one reason that we've found, and it actually applies to myself as well in my own lived experience, is brokenness, broken relationships, usually in the family. For myself, my own personal story is, I came from a household that was broken. My parents divorced when I was really young. I had multiple step parents. So I had that in my household. I suffered child molestation, abuse, and rape. All before the age of 12. I mean, by the time I was 14, I was pissed at the world and and didn't know how to get help for myself. My parents didn't know, so there's a lot of just not understanding what's going on with the person at the time, and that led me straight out to the streets.
That's heart-wrenching, and to know that there's so many, statistically, so many families that experience that. And that the numbers are really, really high. I think it's 4 in 10 women experience something like that. Yes. Women or boys experience that kind of abuse in our households. And to know that that's what leads oftentimes to homelessness is even more heart-wrenching. Could you tell us, first of all, tell us about Sofisa? Because I think that's going to warm my heart up.
Sofisa. Yeah, so in 1999, I felt called back to the streets. I was driving here in Santa Monica with my husband, and I saw the homeless in the park, and I just felt like those are my people. And I hadn't thought about homelessness. I had already gone through my healing journey, at least the major beginning part of it that allowed me to break out of homelessness and become stable. And so when that happened, I kind of was in myself and focusing on myself and feeling good about my life, But then I saw them out there, and I just felt that tug on my heart. It's like, I know what that feels like. I know what that life is, and those are my people. So I started making, chocolate cookies and sandwiches and grabbed like socks and stuff randomly from my drawer, and we just started going out. My husband and I just started going out and just engaging with them, just saying, hey, what's up, asking their name, listening to their stories. And that's how Sofisa started, was just us going out there. I had friends say, oh, hey, what are you doing? And we're interested in joining you. And then what became like 3 people became 12 people, what became 12 people became 25, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then my husband was like, you really should kind of formalize, because, just in case something happens, his was more concerned about just give people something to be a part of so that we can continue helping people. And so that's when we formalized. About 6 years into doing that, we encountered a mom and her 9-month-old baby. And in that encounter, it wrecked me. It's one thing to be older and to be homeless, a homeless adult, even a homeless teenager. It's one thing to be that, but to be a child, a baby on the streets, it tore at me. And so when we encountered them, that's when we decided to really hone in our focus on children and families, because they're hidden. You know, the families are so nervous about losing their children that they hide. You don't really see them open in the parks like, you know, when we go down to Venice Beach, or even now Westchester Park in my neighborhood. There's no families there, there's no children because of that fear. So our organization is emergency outreach to families. We provide nights in motels, immediate needs met, food, cell phone bill paid, whatever their immediate needs are, medical care, reconnecting, trying to find out family, reconnecting them with family, anything to begin that relationship with them, because that's what we feel is the most important aspect of serving and helping the homeless, is to build that healthy relationship. I experienced so many unhealthy relationships growing up, which helped lead me to the streets. And even though I developed relationships homeless, that became my new family and my community, they were unhealthy. And so I ended up accepting help from people who reached out and tried to help me after years on the street, and accepting that help and building the relationships with those people and allowing to trust them helped me come out of homelessness. And that's what that's what Sofisa is trying to do.
It's really beautiful that you mentioned that, you know, the importance of relationship. At the end of the day, human beings are social beings.
Yes.
And so often in this new technological world that we live in, we sometimes forget that, and we sometimes forget how critical it is to just have somebody be able to look you in the eye and say, I see you. For that matter, I'd love for you to touch on sort of in your own words, your definition of homelessness, because we know it's not something that you can point at somebody and say, well, that's homelessness. It's very complex, but you have you have a really good way of explaining what it means and the different levels of homelessness, as well as the different reasons as to, like you mentioned, there are many different reasons as to why people get homeless, but also what happens to the psyche. Sometimes it's the psyche that leads you to homelessness, but what happens in that state when you are homeless? Could you touch on that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's different demographics in the homeless population. There are people who are like myself, who have suffered traumatic wounds, and those wounds and those broken relationships are what send them to the streets. And what happens is that mentally they're stable, but in order to survive on the streets and what you're exposed to out there, that starts to wear you down. Your mental stability now starts to come into question, and you create what is this type of reality to yourself in order for you to survive. So what Sofisa expresses to people is that, you know, most homelessness are in, if not all of them, what we call survival mode. You know, when you and I wake up in the morning, you know, I'm worried about how much cream I'm going to put in my coffee. You know what I mean? So it's like when they wake up in the morning, their brains are high in cortisol and adrenaline because they're in survival mode. It's a physical thing that's happening in the body. And so the best way I know how to describe it is there's people who go into comas. So what happens is when you're living on the street, right? Let's say you've suffered these wounds, you go out there, mentally you're stable, you're just wounded, you're hurt, but what you start to experience on the streets is traumatic in itself. And what that does is now you have got to figure out how to protect yourself, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. All of that is now under attack because of what you're now experiencing. And the body physically goes into a survival mode. You have high cortisol levels, adrenaline is pumping through the veins. You know, I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking about how much cream I'm putting in my coffee. That's what we're doing, right? They're not thinking anywhere near that. They're creating these alternate realities so that they can literally live to see the next day. Otherwise, you're going to see episodes of suicide increase. Like, it's our body's natural way to keep going, to keep breathing, to cope. So you have demographics, and I believe that there's a majority of our homeless population, especially among our families, fall into this category. And what they need is a trusting, healthy relationship to kind of break them out. Well, the way we explain it is like they're in the tornado and we're outside the tornado, and we need to go not all the way in the tornado. We need to go in and help them to see they're in a tornado. Like, let us help you out. So there's different demographics. There's also those who do have an actual mental illness diagnosis, bipolar, schizophrenia, those types of things. And you do see a lot of those. Believe it or not, in the homeless community, those homeless residents are actually separated from the actual inner homeless encampments. They're actually separated as well. You might drive down the street and you might see, oh, there's just one tent there, or there's just this one person. Those are usually the people who have an actual mental illness, a serious mental illness diagnosis. You have people who, from their wounds, have chosen kind of what we call a nomad lifestyle, right? Where a lot of those are the younger generations. Usually it's like teenagers to, maybe 30 years old, where they'll be kind of categorized as just these free spirits who just want to just be free and kind of just do their thing. You have that demographic as well. So there's a few different demographics out there. I would say the majority of the homeless that we have are now a new generation of homelessness. So you have homeless people and people living in poverty now having children, and those children being raised in that environment. So one of our biggest obstacles is encountering families who have been raised in poverty and kind of showing them something different. Like, this isn't actually how you have to live your life.
That's why they call it a cycle of homelessness.
It absolutely is. I mean, if you think about it, we have cycles in every single family. You have cycles in, higher income families. There's certain things that are expected of them in order to keep the income in the family. Like, a lot of these generational cycles they're subconscious. A lot of them we're just doing. We're just going and we're doing. So if this is what the norm is for a family living in poverty, and this is all they've ever seen, then that's all they're ever going to expect to accomplish. So the other thing that Sofisa does is we run programs for families and children. We take them to theater. We do.
You're breaking the cycle.
Well, the idea is to allow them to experience something different than what they're in every day, and actually give the child a moment to break out of survival mode and feel just normal for a second, which they didn't feel before.
Right.
And so the more we can give the children those opportunities, then the better chance we have at continuing our relationship with the family and helping the child, as they get older, realize, oh no, I can do something different than this.
You're clearly well aware that we've got a real homeless issue here in Los Angeles. You mentioned two really great terms. You call it stoppage and you call it flow.
Right.
Could you tell us about that? Because I think that's what's critical right now, and I think that's what, with all the noise in the news right now, we really need to hear some solution-oriented conversations.
Yes.
And you have experienced it. Not only have you experienced it, you've been working in this field for decades now. You've seen it from A to Z.
Yes.
What are your ideas on what's going on in LA, and what are some solutions?
The truth is that the solution to this problem is very complex, and it requires a relationship between everybody in the community.
So you were saying that it's really critical that the community come together in terms of this complex issue of homelessness.
Yes.
Yeah, so tell us more. We can't solve homelessness overnight.
Right.
But what we can do is raise our awareness on what the issues are.
Yes.
Why is it that we have all these organizations out there, just like Sofisa, yet we still have tens upon tens of thousands of homeless out there on the street?
Right.
Tell us more about your concept of flows and stoppages and flows.
How do we get to that solution? Yes, that's actually a great question. So 20 years we've been helping families, and our biggest issue with helping them is helping them through the system of resources and being stopped. Imagine you have a family. You've encountered them. You're spending the time that's needed in order to build the trust so that they will trust you to help them, right? That's what we do first. We relationship build. Once that relationship build is successful and they're like, you know what? Okay, we trust you. What do you suggest next, Jess, right? Okay, well, let's make sure all of your resources are available to you. You're maximizing all those resources, right? And okay, so they do that. So now we're going to DPSS with them, which is Department of Social Services. We're making sure that they're getting the maximum in all their benefits and if they qualify. And once we do that, then we say, okay, now we're gonna house you, right? Let's find you housing. It stops. It stops. So years ago, LA created the 211, the coordinated entry system, okay? And this was the government's big plan to end homelessness, right? And that changed the dynamic of how we interact with our families. What used to take 3 to 5 days to place a family somewhere now was taking months, years. We weren't able to place families because everywhere we went to place families, they were like, no, you have to call 211. Nope, sorry, we don't do that anymore, call 211. I was like, no, wait a minute, wait. Why?
I've experienced 211 myself as a social worker.
It's the 211 nightmare. So what I'm trying to explain to people is whatever is proposed, it's our responsibility as a community to make sure to get accountability. And what we need to ask for is verifiable flow. That's what I call it, verifiable flow, because everything we've tried to do in the 211 system, go to the resource provider, sign up with them, wait for them to call you back. Did you get the email? Nope, didn't get the email. Like, their system is so broken that it doesn't work, and so it's a stoppage. I have families that should have been placed, and it took us 6 to 8 months to get them. We can't afford to put somebody in a motel for 6 to 8 months, so there's a stoppage. So with what's out there right now.
Well, and in terms of stoppage, what you mean is that if you don't, you built this relationship, you go all these extra steps, and then what happens is that you can lose them. They can go into a depression. The idea, well, it's never going to happen. I think that's what you're trying to get to.
We call it slipping through the crack.
Right, they slip through the crack.
We've got them. We've got them exactly where they need to be, and we just need that next step. And you have the government over here saying, oh, okay, we got the next step. Just go through here. Okay, no problem. It doesn't work. Right. It's not working. I'm on the phone. Our advocates are on the phone for all these phone calls. Oh, you're supposed to call 211. Okay, we call 211. Even the poor souls on 211 who are just, employees who are just hired to answer the phone, those poor souls can't help us. They're like, okay, all they're doing is patching you in to a resource provider in your area, and that resource provider is so overwhelmed and backlogged that now you're on a wait list.
So what you're identifying is that there are issues in the way things have been structured. I think I saw you in another interview, and you mentioned how, Section 8 is great, and it's great when somebody finally can get in, but we're finding that people don't actually ever leave Section 8. And so it defeats the purpose if you get some housing under Section 8 that's affordable housing, but then nobody's assisting you in working your way through so that the next person who needs that leg up gets it.
Exactly.
Then we have this stoppage.
Yeah, one of our families, God rest her soul, the mom passed away. They were a Section 8 family. The daughters inherited the Section 8 apartment. So imagine that. And look, I'm all for housing people in need.
Right.
But that apartment now is in that family. Like, if those daughters have children and they get older, do you see how it's the flow that's happening is only for them?
Well, but we're not, and it's great, but the question is, are we taking care of the people who have need? Now, I'm not doubting that most likely maybe this family needs it.
Of course.
And needs the assistance.
Of course.
But what we're not helping them be in a place where they're no longer needing that kind of support.
Right.
You know, one thing you touched upon is what does it mean to get the help and get the assistance, and how it's this idea, if we can perpetuate this give and take. I need now, so help me out. And then you say oftentimes you get a lot of people who come back and volunteer once they've been helped.
Absolutely.
The more we nurture that kind of relationship, I think that's the more people will be helped, and the less we're going to see people living on the streets.
Absolutely.
So now, here we are. We're at Will Rogers Beach. This is the site where they're planning on putting an encampment.
This right here.
This right here. This place right here.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you knew or not,
yeah.
But this is the place. They've proposed now 50 shelters. It's on the books. This is what they want to put right here as a temporary encampment. The motion is out there, motion 21-0350, and to segue into that, I'm going to use a quote that you use that I will never forget. And I heard you say, I'm practical. I believe a spoon is used to stir, and I believe a bike is used to ride. And you said, and I believe that our beaches and parks are places to go and recreate, and they're not homes.
Yes.
And so I don't know what you have to say about that, what you feel like saying about it. I'll tell you how I feel about it. For me, especially listening to what you have to say, homelessness is a lot of it is a relationship issue. As a social worker myself, I've developed many relationships with homeless members in our community, and I can guarantee you that it was the relationship that I developed with them that helped them along the way. And I don't believe that the beach, look at us, we're sitting out here in the freezing cold, right? that this is a place to call home. And even temporarily, I don't believe this is a place to call home. I believe it's terribly unsafe, both for the homeless, given the descriptions of what you described of living in survival mode, yep. in such a stressful state. And I also, I'm concerned about the environment. I mean, like I said, I'm freezing cold. We've got a hillside right here. You're staring at a hillside. Yep. It's a huge fire hazard. Yeah. So I've got a lot of real concerns for it. Mm-hmm. And what I would love to see is the city provide what you said, a remedy where we can get the resource, where you're not just being housed or put in a hotel for a night, but where you are being followed, where you are being nurtured and cared for. Because to me, in my experience, that's the only way I see it happening, and that is what you lived.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here's the thing, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but to expect the government to create relationships with the homeless, you see how well that they've done with the system so far, right? Sofisa believes that we have 3 foundational principles, and they're on our website, so you can read them in detail. But I like small little bits of stuff, like my quote that you like, right? I like for people to be able to latch on to something. And the 3 things that we believe and that we base all of our actions and decisions off of 1, humans are sacred. They're sacred, right? They carry dignity, every single one, regardless of how much money you have, what your life experiences are, whether you're homeless, whether you're not.
Say it again.
Every single human being is sacred and equal in that sacred dignity, okay? That's number 1. That's our founding principle. Number 2, we believe in association and participation. We believe that regardless of who you are and where you live and how much money you have the right to associate in your community, to be a participant in what's happening in your community, And we believe in what's called subsidiarity and solidarity, right? I'm sure people have heard of solidarity before, right? We all just lock arms and come together. That's fine and dandy, right? That's solidarity. We all need to lock arms and come together. But the idea of subsidiarity is that the people who are closest to the problem are probably better at solving it. Right? So the example that I give is, there's a trucking company who goes out, the tow truck company, right? The CEO of the tow truck company isn't going to be able to provide the customer who's calling the best information about what's going to happen to their car, right? So there's the CEO all the way up here, there's the tow truck driver here, and there's the customer, right? So subsidiarity is basically saying the tow truck driver is the best person to engage with the customer, not the CEO. So if you apply that to the homeless situation, the smaller organizations, privately run, smaller groups, grassroots, who feet on the ground, who have experience in these situations, who are actively trying to create these relationships, those are the people you want to get in touch with. Those are the people you want to bring together to help come up with innovative housing solutions in order to help solve this problem. And the third one is we all have a responsibility for everyone in our community, okay? The person sleeping in the tent in my neighborhood park, Westchester Park, has the same responsibility that I have in upholding my community. And I am gonna hold them to that as well. Now, the side part of that is their situation is different than mine. So yes, we give preferential treatment and consideration to marginalized and disadvantaged people. So even though we don't expect them to go the full way, right, we do expect them to move towards it. And that's the part of the responsibility that we're trying to engage with homeless families and trying to empower them with. So one, humans are sacred, every single one of them. Two, every single person in the community has a right to associate, participate, get help, and offer help with one another. All of these divisions, all of these separations, the millionaire and the guy in the tent, we need to come together in that solidarity in order to solve this problem. And three, it's everybody's responsibility. It's not, the more we keep going, oh, when is this council member going to do this? And oh, when is this, government agency going to do this? Stop. We have the power. I'm one person.
And I agree with you. We need to take ownership of what happens in our community because it's not them versus us or whatever.
Exactly.
It's all of us, and it's on us to make LA better, to make this world better, period.
Yes, period. And so for Sofisa, for us, it is going back to your logic, right? Your bike and your spoon. My bike and my spoon quote is, the park is not a place for people to call home. It's not. Why is it not a place for people to call home? Because that's not what it was created for. If it was an apartment building on that land, I'd be like, great, put them in. Okay, who owns it? Let's get their permission. It's not. Putting a temporary homeless encampment or resource center or whatever it is here in this parking lot, is that what the parking lot was built for? No, it's a parking lot. Use it for a parking lot. We can come up, we have so many genius minds. We live in the technological age. We literally can stamp out homes and stick them together. There's people who own tons of land, private investor groups. Like, the community has to pull together and come up with innovative housing solutions. Because right now I feel like, looking at this parking lot, the solution that's on the table that's being proposed, it's all about real estate. It's all about land. It's not about people.
Well, that's what we keep hearing.
It's about land.
Well, this is what I got. This is what I got to give, and so I'm giving this one up.
Yeah, but it's not yours to give.
Right.
That's the thing. It's a parking lot, right? So if we really cared about the homeless, if we really cared about the person that you're saying should be in a tent on this concrete right here, if we really cared about them, we would stop looking in parking lots and we would start looking around to see where else we can help them. This is just somebody looking around saying, okay, where's their room? Oh, right there. That's not focusing on the human person, right? So I don't have a solution for all of this. What I do know is it's really simple. You know, I'm not going to take my spoon and go try and do something with it besides stir my soup, right? I'm not going to use the tire to go paint something. Like, we have to use things for what they were created for, because once we blur those lines, once we now turn a park into a home, we no longer have parks. We erase those boundaries, and if you think you have problems now with the homeless, you just wait until those boundaries are erased. The greatest thing that helped me were the boundaries that were in place. It took me a while to come to it. It took those relationship building with me to see, oh, wait a minute, I guess I can't do this, and I guess I can't sleep here, and I guess I can't do this. You know, the rules don't change based on where you live and how much money you have, and that applies across the whole spectrum. And it's a disservice to the person who is homeless to do that for them. It really is. It really is. They are capable human beings with the right relationship and help to follow the rules, because that's the goal.
Right, absolutely.
That's the goal.
Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you so much for answering these questions. I know it's a really big, complex topic, but I love that you're able to narrow it down and show us how it's very feasible. If we care and we're willing and we give it the time, we give it the right energy, if we connect with each other, we can put these dots together.
Absolutely.
And we can build all the right blocks to make a really big difference. So Los Angeles is no longer known as, you know, the capital of homelessness.
Yes. Yes.
So now, before we close, did you want to share a little bit more about Sofisa?
You can find us online. We're www.sofisa.org.
Thank you again so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it, and I really look forward to seeing more what we can do together.
No, thank you. So do I. Thank you so much.